Thank you, everyone, for joining us here this afternoon. We are about to be joined by Michael de Hoog, who's from Coinbase. He's been at Coinbase since 2017, working alongside Brian Armstrong, and more recently with Jesse Pollak on Beest. So Michael, look, we really appreciate you joining us here this afternoon here in Sydney for the Australian Crypto Convention. We've got the next 25 minutes together, so we'll try and cram in as much as we can in the next 25 minutes. I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience here today, but I just thought I'd start off with saying it's fantastic to chat to you and have a fellow Aussie joining us here down under, as well as someone who's been in the space for so long. So just if you don't mind starting off with a little bit about yourself and maybe a brief chat on how you joined Coinbase back in 2017.
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks for having me. And I'm in between visa renewals right now, so I can't be there in person, but hopefully next year. Yeah, so I've been at Coinbase for around 8 years. I spent 5 years on the Coinbase.com side, sort of like the centralized side, and then coming up on 3 years on the Beest side. My history in crypto, I sort of red-pilled in mid-2016 by Ethereum and joined Coinbase early 2017. You know, Coinbase is a great place to start working in crypto. I hadn't had any crypto experience, but I had tech experience, and so that bringing those two worlds together was a great place for me. And of course, 2017 was the year of the ICO, the initial coin offering. So it was a very interesting and fun time for the industry to start. And Coinbase in particular had never really seen scale before. And so our systems simply weren't architected for that kind of throughput that we saw sort of mid to late 2017. And unfortunately, we also had this reputation of going down. We had reliability issues during those times. That I remember periods of 4 weeks where each week we would double our baseline throughput, and we couldn't keep up with the increasing demand through the volatility. And so sort of that first 5 years at Coinbase, I really just focused on scaling Coinbase.com, the centralized system. We had 30 to 40 engineers. We saw that scale to like 2,000 engineers, and just a great group of engineers trying to keep the lights on, basically. That was my intro to Coinbase.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And now moving on to Beest. So we're about 18 months now since its launch, and I'm sure many people in this audience have sort of read any headlines or seen how rapid the growth has actually been now that it is the fastest growing Ethereum Layer 2. Just last week, Beest actually announced its 1 billionth transaction since launch. So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about the progress that Beest has seen in such a relatively short period of time, and maybe a little bit more about sort of how it came to be and what its origin story was.
Sure. Yeah, so I think over time we're seeing, well, we believe that more and more businesses are going to be moving on chain, especially financial services companies. And Coinbase recognized this pretty early on, that the revenue model, we basically had two sides of Coinbase. We had the exchange, and then we had the brokerage, which was still a trading interface, but for less experienced users. And we recognized that this revenue model was just not going to be sustainable. It's a race to bottom with fees, and we saw competitors coming online. And so we really wanted to bring Coinbase on chain. We saw that as like a existential thing that we needed to move the company on chain. And outside of the partnership with Circle with USDC in 2018, Coinbase hadn't really done anything on chain before. It was we were a crypto company, but we were also 80% a tech company who happened to dabble in crypto. And so this mandate of bringing Coinbase on chain, we tried a bunch of things in the early Beest years. We built like a decentralized on-chain ad network. We did an initial smart wallet prototype that was sort of focused on bringing identity on chain and like keeping your identity so you don't lose it. We built this DApp store system similar to DApp Radar. We even built like a rewards and a reward system or a point system. And the problem we kept running into was that, well, firstly, we were very aligned that we wanted to build on Ethereum. The problem we ran into was that the L1 was too expensive to bring the amount of users we wanted to bring on chain. but Coinbase was very chain agnostic at the time, and so we couldn't choose an L2. So we kept sort of flip-flopping between L1, L2, where should we build? And that's where Base came from, right? We wanted a place for Coinbase to bring Coinbase on chain. We wanted some place that was obvious for us to bring our business there. And Optimism's superchain vision was compelling. They had a vision for not just their L2 winning, but like many L2s, which is very aligned with Ethereum's future, I think. And so we ended up launching Base on the OP Stack. And so that's sort of the origin story of Base. Coinbase needed a place to build. And yeah, it's been a fantastic ride the last 3 years. We're really excited about the engagement from builders and the alignment from the ecosystem. We're trying to make it as sort of decentralized and community focused as possible.
Yeah, fantastic. And so maybe then a bit of a what's next for Base. So how are you and some of the engineers currently thinking about scaling it even more? Obviously, there's been a lot of rapid pace of adoption of it over the last 18 months. But sort of what's next, and how does that begin to scale and continue to scale?
Yeah, so our mission for Base has been bringing 1 billion users on chain. You hear Jesse talking about that as well. And obviously, we need some serious scale to achieve that sort of milestone. And more recently, we've been talking about this Gigas Per Second goal that we have. And so that's sort of one of our primary focuses, to increase our throughput and our TPS, basically, and our gas per second. We're currently at 28 megagas, so we're still like 35 times away from a gigagas. That's a long way, and we're already hitting limits. We're hitting limits on L1 blob space. There's a lot of L2s competing for this blob space, and so we're working on increasing per block blob targets and working on things like peered AS for sampling the data availability. We're running into L2 execution speed, particularly like Merkleization of the state as we finalize blocks. And there's some interesting ideas from Monad who are deferring that to the next block. So we're looking at those sorts of things, or maybe even slowing down blocks and bringing in something like Rollup Boost to speed up our inclusion with pre-confirmation style things without actually having to Merkleize every single block. And state growth, of course, is a real problem as well. We've recently just completely deprecated our Geth archive nodes because we just can't find instances that can store state on SSDs big enough. So we're moving to full nodes and Reth as much as possible. And so we're looking at state expiration and tiered storage systems, and putting hot accounts in RAM and warm in SSDs. And so we've got, all of this is very early on, but that's our goal, is to get to a gigagas and get as many people on chain as possible. Also, just a mention of OP Stack's interrupt features. We could think about scaling horizontally and run multiple chains of Base and then use their interrupt to synchronously or somewhat synchronously move messages between blockchains that we run. Yeah, so just a few ideas we're working on scaling.
I love that. And before you sort of mentioned smart wallets as well, so I guess from that sort of retail and onboarding side, for those who might not have seen, we actually sponsored the Melbourne Marathon this year. Coinbase down in Melbourne, and onboarded nearly 2,000 people via smart wallets in a one-click setup to mint an NFT or claim the digital medal that had the metadata of their marathon sort of results on it. So, that's one example, and we did that here locally. There's other examples that I think, a lot of people in the audience have sort of seen that are going on. But what's the logic around the sort of smart wallet approach, and what sort of adoption have you seen around that, specifically around the Base side there too?
Yeah, well, I mentioned our 1 billion users on chain goal. The logic around having a smart wallet is we don't believe that's going to happen with seed phrases and gas fees. It's just the onboarding is too painful for new users. And so we're really aligning around 4337 and bringing gasless transactions to users. And also people have phones in their pockets, right? That have signing hardware on them. Why not use that rather than rather than making them store a seed phrase somewhere. And so that's sort of where the smart wallet came from. You know, Coinbase Wallet has been around for a few years now and really just focused on EOAs. We hadn't, I mean, a few internal engineers were pushing for 3.7, but we didn't really get alignment until Base came along. And now that wallet team has been folded into the greater Base team, and we're really focused on building a really easy to use smart wallet powered by Passkeys, you know, on the users' phones, and onboarding as many users to that as possible, making it super simple.
Thanks so much for that. Now, you're also building a few other things or working on some other things. So just curious if you might be able to tell us a little bit more about some of these things you're working on, some of these things you're building at the moment, specifically sort of key space and some of the L3 side of things as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, in our push towards smart wallets, one of the obvious cons or one of the obvious problems with smart wallets is that, like, it's a smart contract. It's sort of, it sits on a chain, and that state is inaccessible to other chains or without complicated proofs and like long wait times. And so this leads to this like complicated dance of keeping wallet states in sync across multiple chains, or like choosing a chain as your home and doing Merkle proofs on the other chains, or choosing the L1 as your home, which is expensive, and then proving L1 state. And, you know, Vitalik's written about this as well. And so we started this thing called Keyspace, which is a minimal key store ZK rollup. By minimal, I mean it's a rollup the only purpose of which is to store wallet state, like an authenticated key value store, basically, that is accessible on many chains. And you can read about it. You can just go to key.space. We have a website there. And then over the past couple of months, we've sort of pivoted away from that ZK rollup towards a more smart contract-based solution, which we're going to talk about a little bit more publicly in the next couple of weeks. So that's the key space side. You also mentioned L3s. I've been working on some small modifications to the OP stack to prove the blocked state transition in a trusted execution environment. And that allows us to reduce the withdrawal times from 7 days down to 10 seconds, because we're proving real time and then submitting those proposals on chain, so we can get those withdrawals down to 10 seconds. And we're planning on launching this implementation or this modification of the OP stack as L3s on top of Base. And I think the thing that excites me there is that, you know, we have this gigagas goal. This is another way that we scale block space on the L2 by bringing it to the L3s. And if we reduce the time for deposits in withdrawals, you can see it as an extension of L2 block space. And so you could imagine some app chain L3, and there's a user there that has some NFT or some token, and they want to perform a swap, but the liquidity is on the L2. You could do a withdrawal, prove it, do the swap, and do the deposit back to the L3 and have that composability in about 10 to 15 seconds. And so we're kind of excited about this idea of like composable L3s. And that's open source as well. You can just Google OP Enclave if you're interested in that.
Awesome. Now, if anyone here in the audience listening in is sort of looking for some information on just where to get started, where to go to, how to start building on space, or even just learning a bit more if they're starting out, where can they go, and what are maybe some resources or platforms or tools that they can start checking out?
Yeah, well, I mean, the jumping off point is always going to be base.org, just our website has docs for deploying smart contracts and getting funding for your startup and joining Discord and community and hackathons and all of that stuff, our contract addresses. We're also launching a new docs site in the next, I don't know when we'll launch it. It'll be at base.dev, so that's pretty exciting. And then you can go to our GitHub as well, github.com/base-org. yeah, so that's sort of the place to get started. I probably won't talk about my favorite tools and that sort of thing. Just go there and have a look at.
No, fair enough. I might squeeze one more in because we do have just a little bit of time, but maybe in terms of the ecosystem, some of the stuff that maybe other people are building or other projects, like what sort of maybe some of the more exciting stuff that you've seen and maybe that's true to that really sort of initial vision for Base that you sort of got your eyes on or that's kind of, yeah, exciting you at the moment, looking into the future? Yeah,
I mean, I can't get enough of the ZK space. I think the Risk Zero guys are doing some amazing work, and the Cinc guys are doing some amazing work. You know, and they both have provers for the OP stack, and so we're going to get to a point where we just get rid of our optimistic rollups, or we have like multiple proof systems, one of which is a ZK. So I'm really excited about that. Actually, just past couple of days, I was working on a ZK prover for AWS Nitro attestations. So you can, rather than doing the SHA-384 signature checks and hashes in Solidity, which is very gas intensive, you just do it in a ZK VM. And so, yeah, all the ZK stuff is really exciting. The Binius guys as well are doing some amazing work, you know, having hardware accelerated stuff as well as their binary field, which is really cool. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I would love to be working on full time. The ZK stuff. It's great.
Awesome, love that. Thank you so much. Now we do have about 3 to 5 minutes for any questions. So I'm not sure if we've got a roaming mic, but if anyone does have a question out there for Michael, feel free to ask away. I think we've got one at the back there. I'm not sure if we've got a mic.
Wait, what?
We've got a mic coming, Michael.
Where's the mic? Who's asking the question? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, g'day there. I was just going to ask about onboarding's obviously been a big pain point for crypto, getting the masses on chain, making that simple. You mentioned around some of the smart wallets and passkeys and things. Like, is passkeys the brand new technology you think is going to help with that new onboarding? And what does that kind of look like over the next couple of years? Will everyone be using some kind of form of that with their wallet?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Google and Apple have made passkeys ubiquitous because, you know, you generate a passkey with your Face ID or your fingerprint on your phone, and it automatically gets backed up into your iCloud or your Google account. And so just because there's like support from the hardware and the software companies, it just seems like a no-brainer to embrace that. Also, you know, there's the EIP that added P256 signing or EC recover support, basically, so you can verify those signatures from passkeys in a much cheaper way. So yes, I think like the reason we've chosen that is because it's just available to everyone. It's very ubiquitous. It's also, I would say that ECDSA signatures are, you know, that they don't aggregate well, and so if we want to realize the vision of making our state smaller by aggregating signatures across the block, we'll probably have to use BLS or something, which, you know, there's no passkey that supports BLS that I know of. Maybe some like the YubiKey stuff does, but it's not really a standard that everybody has yet. And so that's something that over time we're going to have to work with these vendors on. And as quantum, you know, we'll want post-quantum stuff as well. So I think BLS may be the future, but for now, passkeys are working really well for us.
Thanks for that one. We do have time for one more question, if anyone had anything. Just in the middle there.
Hey mate, thanks for the talking. Are we gonna, with this mass onboarding strategy, are we gonna sacrifice self-custody and the kind of security on that, or we just try to compromise that? Because that's the big talking things, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we very strongly believe in self-custody. There's a lot of reasons why self-custody is helpful for us. For example, if we custody assets, we have a whole bunch of compliance things. We can't custody certain assets, and so there's like, it makes the user experience, you know, degraded. We can only support a certain top 100 assets or something like that. And so, like, you know, passkeys are, Coinbase doesn't have any view into that key material. It's stored on your phone, or it's stored in your Google account. And so technically it is self-custodied. We also have the ability to add signers. You can do a multi-sig. You can add a K1 key if you'd like to, with a seed phrase. And so I think like the direction Coinbase is going in is away from this, we'll custodial your crypto assets for you. Instead, we'll provide the infrastructure for being self-custodians and recovery and like having your identity on chain and all of that sort of stuff, because that's you know, that's what it means to bring a company on chain.
Fantastic. Well, look, Michael, really appreciate you making the time for us here in Sydney. I know it's your evening over there in the US at the moment, but round of applause for Michael. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And we'll hopefully catch you in Australia at some point next year as well. If you do have any other questions that you wanted to pass through to Michael, or sort of anything around the base, I will be at the back after this as well, so you can sort of ask anything. But thank you so much, Michael.